Center for the Study of World Religions, Harvard Divinity School.
So, not to start off on too somber a note, but you did come to an event called Study of Sorrow. So let's admit that there's been at least a bit of sadness in the last few years, maybe some existential desperation I can see on some faces. And so tonight we're calling in a poet doctor, Shangyang Fang. Well, actually, I think you are an engineer. Right. So that didn't really work, but that's maybe an appropriate for a doctor of the soul, knowing how to sort of take things apart and rebuild them so they can bear the weight of feeling. Shangyang has arrived with a diagnosis or maybe a remedy. We need to let someone else in here. The new book, Study of Sorrow, a translation of Song Dynasty poems that also promises to translate our private laments into a collective experience. The book is just out, so I haven't yet benefited, but I know Shangyang's debut, Burying the Mountain. I know its radiance and intimacy. I have traveled down what one reviewer calls its wild ekphrastic stream of consciousness and taken its associative leaps and heard in its resonant absences and exiles the echoing of this book. Language as wound, as balm, a tenderness, the sweetest bedside manner, and the promise of some solace. Shangyang Fang is Professor of English and Creative Writing at UMass Boston. He received the Gregory O'Donnell International Poetry Award and the Wallace Stegner at Stanford. His poems appear in The Nation, Ploughshares, Yale Review, and Best American Poetry, and the forward book of poetry Anthology. He will read from the new book. Thank you so much.
木兰花，张先。乡里徒有相逢梦，门外马蹄尘已动。怨歌留待醉时听，远目不堪空寄送。今宵风月知谁共？深夜琵琶槽上凤。人生无物比多情，江水不深，山不重。Departure. After tonight, what's left of you is you moving into my dream. Outside, the horse hooves stamping the ground, the dust moves. No sorrowful songs for me unless I am drunk. I am drunk. Forgive me that I couldn't bear to see you off, vanishing with the sun. Alone with the west wind and the moon, alone listening to the pipa sobbing, its pegbox carved into a phoenix. Listen, crying bird, to live without this grief is to see the mountain without its weight, rivers without depth. Hello, thank you for coming, and thank you to Laurie for organizing this event, and to Shira. Thank you for inviting me, and also congratulations, Shira just had a book of translation that just came out from Copper Canyon Press. It's called You Must Live. It's so good. Everyone go buy it. Everyone. So today I thought if I spend the whole time just reading poetry, it'd be a little bit boring. So I decided to make a small presentation, which is really a section of postscript from this book. And it will take about 10 minutes, and then I will read about 20 minutes, and I'll do something else in the last 5 minutes, and that'll be it. We'll have Q&A. There are books there. If you want to purchase them, please feel free. So Song Dynasty is about 900 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 900 years ago. And anyone knows what are the characteristics of Chinese poetry? Like the problem with it. It doesn't have pronouns, right? It doesn't have pronouns. And the sense of space and time is also very peculiar in ancient Chinese poetry, and I'm going to talk about that. I'll give you a little exercise along the way. It's challenging to translate ancient Chinese poetry. The language is inherently ambiguous. The language omits articles, linking verbs, and many conjunctions and prepositions, resulting in a syntax that lacks the clear cause and effect structure of subject, verb, object. Additionally, nouns, verbs, and adjectives often interchange roles. The pronouns are rarely used without explicit markers such as I, you, it, or we. The distinction between the observer and observed becomes blurred, leaving emotions and images to float unanchored. The language relies heavily on juxtaposition and association. To illustrate this, consider a word-by-word reading of a poem by Du Fu, a glimpse into how a native Chinese reader might experience these ancient verses. 旅夜抒怀，细草微风岸，危墙独夜舟。星垂平野阔，月涌大江流。名启文章著，观音老病休。飘飘何所似？天地一沙鸥。Thin grass, faint winged bank, tall mast, lone night boat, star hand playing wild broad, moon gush, vast river flow. Fame, how literary essay visible, official should ode sick end. Float, float, what be like? Sky, earth, one sand go. In this version, characters function as independent checkpoints along an invisible railway that readers must connect imaginatively. The characters' isolated, open-ended meanings defy a straightforward translation into English. In ancient Chinese, every monosyllabic character forms a word with multiple potential meanings, with its specific sense crystallizing only when combined with others. They are malleable as toy bricks. Additionally, monosyllabic brevity often results in a tightly fused adjective-noun or verb-noun compound. I love the English word sunset for its dynamic quality. It melds the sun, noun, with its setting, verb, into a term that feels both active and static, like a moored boat undulating on water. It is more common in Chinese phrases to possess such duality. In this poem, for example, one might wonder what the second line about the relationship between juxtaposed phrases such as star hand and plain wild broad, or moon gush and vast river flow. What's the relationship? Here's the exercise. If you have your phone or if you have a piece of paper, I'll give you 2 minutes to form a grammatically correct English sentence of the second line of this poem. And you will tell me your translation of it. And for those audience members on Zoom, please do this as well. Okay, anyone would like to share their rendition of this line? Star hand playing wild broad moon gush, vast river flow. Please.
Star hangs over the wild broad plain, the moon over the vast gushing river's flow.
That's beautiful. Don't be shy. Please.
Shooting stars hang over the broad plain, while the moon gushes over a vast flowing river.
Oh, that's beautiful. More? Maya, please.
The stars float across the wide sky above the moon-kissed rushing river.
You can see all these renditions are so different from one another with the same words. I rendered this as stars hang low, making the plain wilderness seem broader. The moonlight gushes along with the flow of a vast river. Immediately, we have a clearer sense of the situation. Nouns find their definitive placement fixed in relation to one another with the aid of modifiers. The adverb low, the present participle making, the definite article the, and the linking verb seem, and the prepositional phrases, I hate preposition, along with and of. However, what's been compromised in this translation is the spatial interplay, the coexistence of events and elements, and multiple layers of meaning inherent in the source text. This line, for example, exudes an almost surreal quality in Chinese. It conjures the image of the moon as a dam, which once opened, unleashes an entire river. The absence of prepositional phrases and linking verbs in Chinese poetry, as illustrated in this poem, prevents actions and objects from being confined to fixed spatial coordinates or relationships. Similarly, the tenseless nature of classical Chinese poetry restrains it from committing to a finite segment of time. Because Chinese lacks verb tenses, there is no explicit differentiation among past, present, and future. Shifts in time might be suggested through imagery, the transition of seasons, whether historical events or the narrative order, events presented in specific sequence that the reader intuitively follows, or subtextual cues such as stanza breaks or repetitions. Now let's consider another poem by Li Shangying. 夜雨寄北，君问归期未有期。巴山夜雨涨秋池，何当共剪西窗烛？却话巴山夜雨时。You asked me a date of my return, no date has been set. Night rain falling on the bar mountain swells the autumn pounds. When will we trim wicks together by our west window to talk about the time? Night rain falling upon the bar mountain. It remains debatable whether Li Shangying wrote the poem as a letter to a friend or as an elegy for his wife who passed away a year before this poem was written. The first line, you asked me a date of my return, no date has been set, can be read as referring either to a past moment when his wife was still alive or to an imagined scenario. The second line grounds us in the present, as the poet observes the water level slowly rising in the ponds. The third line, when will we trim wicks together by our west window, recalls an intimate act that had happened in the past and may or may not repeat in the future, depending on whether the addressee is the friend or the dead wife. Finally, the closing line transports us to an imagined future, reflecting on night rain falling on Bar Mountain, which is present. This interplay of past, present, and future creates a circular sense of timelessness, what one might call all-timeness. The effect is made even more palpable in Chinese with the repetitions more pronounced and the deliberate omission of linking verbs, prepositional phrases, and verb tenses that would confine events to a finite timeline. Instead, the poem returns to its inescapable phenomenon itself, the night rain on Bar Mountain, whose state of being undifferentiated, unpartitioned by the passage of time, seems to fall, is falling, and will continue to fall as it has fallen endlessly over 1,000 years. So that will be the end of the presentation. Do you know how do I close this? Or no? Do I just do this? Yeah. Oh, magic! I love it. And recently I got an interview and they asked me, so how do you translate that into English? And I said, I can't. When that's being translated into English, that means it's poems full of grammatical mistake, with the tenses all wrong and without the prepositional phrases. So I'm going to read some of the poems being translated from this book. I didn't organize the poem in terms of the alphabetically by the author's last name, but instead it's divided into 7 chapters. So I will read from these chapters through the sequence. The first chapter is called Departure. I like that a book opened with goodbye instead of hello. 烟雁无心，太湖西畔随云去。数风清苦，商略黄昏雨。第四桥边，你共天随住。今何许？凭栏怀古，残柳参差舞。Passing Songwu in the winter of 1187. 姜夔。Swallows and swans, heartless, trail the rootless clouds at the west side of Lake Tai. Thin hills stand still in bankruptcy, discussing whether they could afford another rain before sunset. I too wanted to disappear with you at Fourth Bridge. Friend, where are you now? Beyond the railing, those broken willows dance so brokenly. 丑奴儿秦观。夜来酒醒清无梦，愁倚栏杆。露滴清寒，雨打芙蓉泪不干。佳人别后应尘敲，受尽难判。明月无端，已过红楼12间。I wake up lucid and dreamless, leaning on the balcony. Autumn rain falls on hibiscus. The night is weeping. Since you left, I have grown thin. The moon moves past 12 red chambers without human noticing. A lot of these poems are very sentimental. I had a excuse me, poet friend visiting me from Denver a while ago, and I showed him the draft of this manuscript, and he was like, why is departure such a big deal for these ancient poets? And I was like, well, they were traveling with their feet, carriages, horses, bamboo boats, and once you say goodbye, that means probably you won't see each other until you're dead, or if after 10 years. And then he said, now I understand. If I imagine I fly back to Denver and there's no airplane in this world to fly back to Boston, I'll be crying for at least 2 weeks. I was like, that's a 2-week crying friendship. And this poem is very sentimental. It's also one of my favorite in Chinese. Anyone got educated in China? Anyone? Growing up, educated in China? No one? One? Let's recite this poem together. It's on the college entrance exam. 雨霖铃，柳永。寒蝉凄切，对长亭晚，骤雨初歇。都门帐饮无绪，留恋处，兰舟催发。You remember? I 执手相看泪眼，竟无语凝噎。念去去，千里烟波，暮霭沉沉，楚天阔。多情自古伤离别，更那堪冷落清秋节。今宵酒醒何处？杨柳岸，晓风残月。此去经年，应是良辰好景虚设。便纵有千种风情，更与何人说？ The sound of cicadas pierces the autumn sky. Late against the pavilion, the downpour stops so suddenly. At the makeshift tent beyond the city gate of the capital, the wine tasteless, The docked boat, like a leaf of magnolia, urges your leaving. We hold hands, looking so deeply into each other's eyes, tearful. For the first time, I feel that more language suggests more hopelessness. Thinking of where you are going where masses of evening clouds envelop, thicken over an infinite stretch of mist-hooded waters. Those who laugh at me for my sentimentality come step inside this lover's shape that cuts open this desolate autumn day. To what will I wake tonight? At the bank of poplars and willows, where the dawn wind shears a slim moon. There will still be years ahead, good days that are embroideries with enchanting images continuing in emptiness. How they will invoke 1,000 feelings, 1,000 ravishments, agonies, and I can't tell you about any of it. Now we move to love sickness, of course. After separation, there will be love sickness. Speaking of departure, I love a quote by Osip Mandelstam who says, "Departure is the younger sister of death." This one is also on the college entrance exam. 薄雾浓云愁永昼，瑞脑消金兽。佳节又重阳，玉枕纱厨。半夜凉初透，东篱把酒黄昏后，有暗香盈袖。莫道不销魂，帘卷西风，人比黄花瘦。These are long days, days of waiting, stretched longer by the clouds thickening over the weak fog, and the smoke of burnt camphor rising from the golden incense box. Once again, it is the Chongyang Festival, jade pillow and gauze tent, a coldness permeating the night. Holding a cup of rice wine at the east fence, my sleeves filled with the odor of old blossoms. Don't tell me that the soul won't be abraded by this dense scent of love's sickness. The west wind rolling up the curtain, I am thinner than a yellow chrysanthemum. 春风依旧，着意随堤柳。搓得蛾儿黄欲救，天气清明时候。去年紫陌青门，今宵雨破云魂。断送一身憔悴，只消几个黄昏。On the Sui embankment, spring wind hasn't changed a bit, kneading willow sprouts till they turn light yellow, the texture of duck feathers. Last year, we walked on the purplish pathway to the city gate. Tonight, clouds after rain assemble a loose apparition of you. How many more sunsets can a heart endure? Expectancy things me, and the twilight can kill a man. That was a pretty good one. And I'm going to end this section with a very strange poem. This one might seem more modern to readers of contemporary and modern poetry, because this person was avant-garde of his time. His language is quite strange, using encoded metronome that he invented. I wrote a whole chapter about it in the postscript, so you should buy the book if you want to know. 润玉笼箫，弹音已扇，绣圈犹带枝香浅。流星空蝶舞群红，爱之阴鸦愁环乱。午梦千山窗阴一见，香般新退红丝晚。隔江人在雨声中，晚风孤夜深秋院。The jade's sleek skin leaks scrubbed light. Arm chiffon swathed, a quarter slice of cherry, shaken by its own reddening. Lips concealed behind the folding fans, unfolding. Silk scarf dim-scented with rouge powder, skirt in dance, pleated by the wind's many hands, tucked like the many hearts of one pomegranate. A stalk of mugwort quenches the black hair's disquiet. Noon's porous dream that implores the diminishment of the distance. 10,000 bodies of water closing, all happened when the shade of an orchid shifts from the right side of the casement to the left, the wrist's ligature mark slowly disappearing. Its bracelet remains. You stand on the other side of the deluge past a veil of loud rain. Listen, the bulrushes lean back toward their own coldness, giving birth to a real autumn. Very strange, right? It's different from the rest of the poems. Now, wartime. I will just read one poem. The wartime poems are a little bit longer. As we know, there's so much to be talked about it. 玉孤台下清江水，中间多少行人泪。西北望长安，可怜无数山。青山遮不住，毕竟东流去。江晚正愁余，山深闻鹧鸪。The river that crosses the Yugu terrace flows lucent and quiet. How much of that is the migrant's tears mixed in there? I gaze into the distance, the conquered capital at the northwest. I see only mountains, too many mountains, mountains that can't hold the river back from rushing eastward. Dusk falls on water from the depth of hills. A quail's cry drills into my chest. And solitude. 萋萋芳草忆王孙，柳外楼高空断魂。杜宇深深不忍闻，欲黄昏。雨打梨花深闭门。Feeding on memories, the scented herbage proliferates. Tall willows. The pavilion emptied of crowds is a body without its soul. All day, the delirious cuckoo sighs, come back, come back. Near dusk, rain pelts the pear blossoms hard. I close the doors. "风住沉香花已尽，日晚倦梳头。物是人非事事休，欲语泪先流。闻说双溪春尚好，野拟泛轻舟。只恐双溪折猛舟，载不动许多愁。" Wind halts, the dust fragrant with disheveled petals. Evening, I am too tired to comb my hair. Things remain, people gone. Everything has come to an end. Tears come before words. I heard at the twin streams the spring remains ravishing. I thought of going, spending the night on the light boat. But I fear those grasshopper boats could not bear so much sorrow. Now this is the fun section. It's called Unbridled. After all the fucked upness in the world, all the war and everything, they're like, fuck it. I'm not going to read the Chinese for the sake of time. Drunk at Eastern Slope, sober up, get drunk again. When I return, it's past midnight. I hear the servant boy snoring behind the locked doors and think there's a thunderstorm in my house. No one answers my knocking. Leaning on my bamboo cane, all night I listen to the river repeating itself to itself. I hate that this body is not my body, and my life not mine. When can I forget about chasing after fortune and fame like a frenetic donkey? Darkness deepens. The wind straightens the water it has made crooked. An empty boat vanishing into the night. To the rivers and the sea, I shall tether the rest of my life. This one is crazier. 百辛弃疾. Now that I'm old, those who cross the mountains and oceans with me are parts of the mountains and oceans. I still call those dirty skeletons my friends. My friends, now that my white hair is 30,000 feet long, taking so much room around me, nothing in this life can't be concluded with a laugh. All those infatuated dreams of fruitless desire, years in the military, and my ambition in politics to serve my nation since youth, all these are like the porridge dumped into a slop bucket. What can make me happy? What has ever made me happy? Suddenly, I recognized the Blue Mountains as dashing and handsome, didn't know all the while the Blue Mountains thought the same about me. After all, we look similar, the same wrinkly crags and cliffs, mosses and mustaches, and now the same stone heart we share. Holding a pot of wine, I scratch my head at the east side window, wondering if Tao Yuanming felt the same after he finished his poem about the halted clouds. What do those politicians delirious at the left bank of the Yangtze understand the true nature of drinking, their feet in sewage, fishing feverish dreams of fame and money? I turn to holler at the empty landscape to startle the clouds and the storm's surges. I don't feel sorry that I can't meet those dead ancient poets. Instead, I feel sorry for them not being able to drink with me, a man writ large, unbridled, and wild. Friends, I am understood only by the mountains, your buried bones. And I'll skip to nostalgia. And when the term nostalgia being used in Chinese, especially classical poetry, it's not only personal nostalgia of childhood, of the past, but also kind of collective nostalgia of previous dynasties, imagined time, etc. But this section is probably the section that's most dense with allusions and references. So I'm going to read one that is light. That has nothing to do with any of those. It's a love poem. And this poem is written by, I think, one of the greatest, not the one of, the greatest writer in the history of human beings. Who's that? Oh, wow, that's huge. Who's that? Anonymous. Who's Homer? Who's Shakespeare? Anonymous, a lot of these anonymous writings were done by peasants, farmers, boatmen, those who didn't have a name in history. And their poems are so musical. Just listen to the Chinese, you can listen to the musicality, even you don't understand it. Because I guess it's easier to memorize, to be sung. 脉脉春阴半酒酣，风透春山，雨透春山。人家丧事玉绵三，桑满筐篮，蔗满筐篮。仙字离怀百不堪，强燕呢喃，良燕呢喃。勾灯强把锦书看，人在江南，心在江南。Isn't that musical? Late spring drizzle moistens my thin clothing, my clothing cooling in the breeze. This afternoon I will feed my silkworms with a basket of mulberry leaves and a basket of melonberry leaves. I will listen to the swallows on the beam, swallows on the mast. I will light all candles to read your letter after dark. I am not in Jiangnan. I am nowhere but Jiangnan. And the last chapter of the book is, what is it called? Give me a moment. Passing years. These poets grow old, and I'll read the last poem of this book. It's also by Li Qingzhao. She had a wonderful, prestigious life before the war. And during the war, while she was in exile, moving from the north to the south, her husband was died on the way. and she couldn't be cured after that. Well, then she married another husband who is a total asshole, stole all her belongings, beat her up and everything. She divorced him, which is great, but according to the law at the time, when women divorce a man, you are sentenced to jail for 2 years. And this is at the end of her life. 庭院深深深几许，云窗雾隔长扃。柳梢眉萼渐分明，春归墨林树，人老渐安沉。感月迎风多少事，如今老去无尘。谁怜憔悴更凋零？试灯无意思，踏雪没心情。The courtyard deep in the deep shadow of groves, the closed windows further locked in by mist, some trees budding, the usual patterns of spring. I think I'm going to die in this region. My life spent singing about the moon, the wind. I accomplished nothing. I'm the only thing withering away in Nanjing. I have no desire to hang up the lanterns, no desire to walk in the last snow. And I'm going to return to the section of love, sickness, and read the last poem from the book, and I'm going to read something else. It'll be quick. The reason I saved this poem to the last, because this poem confused me a lot. And it was published in the Great Peripheries. Everyone go buy Periphery Journal. It's so good. I'll tell you why it confused me after I read it. 燕燕轻盈，莺莺娇软，分明又像华胥剑。夜长真得薄情知，春初早被相思染。别后书辞别时针线，离魂暗逐郎行远。淮南皓月冷千山，冥冥归去无人管。Light-winged as a swallow touching another swallow, soft-voiced as a warbler calling warblers. I can't tell whether it's you or my memory speaking to me again. You who are clueless about my long nights, causing the beginning of spring saturated with love's sickness. Letters you sent me, your needlework remains deeply stitched along the inner lining of my coat. To make me dream of you, your little soul must have crept outside of your body to travel near my hairpin. The moon of Huainan, burnished in coldness, freezes 1,000 mountains in one night. When your soul walks back, she walks back alone, abandoned like the rest of us. How many of you are poets in this room? Wow, quite a few. My sympathy. My deep sympathy. I'm also, if you don't know, I'm also a poet. Translation happened like an accident. So I have, because also Shara mentioned that I did engineering for my undergrad, so I have a lot of friends who are not poets. And that's very healthy, and I would bother them with my drafts of my poems. I was like, cleanse your soul from all the money making. And they are the best readers. I do think that their response is, I love it, I hate it, or I don't understand. That's it, very direct. And occasionally they will make some really intriguing comments. Like in that poem, when I sent that poem to a friend of mine, and there's the line, the moon of Huainan, burnished in moonlight freezes 1,000 mountains in one night. And the friend said, well, the moon of Huainan sounds no different from the moon of Arkansas. I was like, what do you mean? And then I was left so obfuscated by that comment. But then I thought maybe because, you're unfamiliar with either of those places, that the name of the places seemed displaceable. So I started writing a 7-page poem trying to figure that out. I know, my sympathy, poets, that's how you waste your life. waste my life. 7-page, and I'm going to read it. It's not that long. You can see it's double-spaced and it's in sections. I'm going to read this poem next month at the faculty reading, so pretend you never heard of this. And also, this is around the time I was writing this poem, a dear mentor of mine passed away. And well, she used to live in Cambridge. Louise Glick, you might have heard of her. She's a local poet. And so this is also kind of, she appeared in the poem, kind of an elegy as well. After reading my translation of Jiang Kui, my friend texted, "The moon of Huainan sounds no different from the moon of Arkansas." The art of precision, my mentor once said. Each word must be fastened to its own finality. No word can stand in for another. There's a fiber of coldness in her tone on which 12 moons can settle. Jiang Kui, born almost 900 years ago, put down lines on love sickness in Huainan, a place exalted for the devastating sweetness of tangerines. He had never seen the moon of Arkansas or the Arkansas sorghum field under the moonlight, so fecund, or that cowboy in shiny boots droops over his horseback like a burlap sack dying for love. The Arkansas mountains, all ink-washed on the sailcloth of evening, so beautiful, Jiang Kui could have written, "The moon of Arkansas, burnished in coldness, freezes 1,000 mountains in one night." The music of names, for the first time, seems displaceable. I called my dead mentor's name last night, and her name is a harp with its strings missing, which I cross like a glass door. The music is gone, the music of my name from her mouth. 900 years ago, at a hotel beside Jingling River, Jiang Kui wrote to the dead, "To make me dream of you, your soul must have crept outside of your body to travel near my hairpin." The moonlight tonight, the same moonlight 900 years ago. Some poets must have written, "The moon rises beyond the body of earth like a soul." I don't dream of the moon. I only need to stare at it, and the world I'm in becomes a dream uninterrupted by the world I'm in. Arkansas, a place I've not been but feel nostalgic about, possum pie, whatever that is, and biscuits with chocolate gravy I've not had but miss. I miss them as I miss the tangerines in Huainan, a sweetness I've not had. At the end of the poem, Jiang Kui wrote, "When your soul walks back, she walks back alone, abandoned like the rest of us," which is a mistranslation. For the subject of that sentence, instead of "your soul," should have been the moon who returns into the darkness alone, which cannot be possessed to be abandoned, but only untended by human. I was at my mentor's yard in the spring of California, red peonies ravishing. When she talked about poetry, there was a fleck of flame locked inside her iris, making the whole garden dissolve. I dissolved. Between us, drafts of poems on the table, jar heavy with blue-white blossoms. Part of the impulse to translate is to preserve, says a friend, which implies an afterlife. Jiang Kui, you don't know me, and I, who doesn't own a jade hairpin, am dreaming of you, translating you wrongly. Your bamboo mattress became bamboo mattress in English, peonies that are small vermilion palanquins, and your youth like 10 miles of spring breeze I can't greet. I greet you by memorizing, in this world, there is no grief when breakup outlasts memory. That imagined boy riding his imagined horse in the imagined sorghum field is dying for his imagined love, not knowing love must be real for the imagined to take place. The dead must be real for the living to be imagined. Perhaps the moon of Huainan is another devastating mistranslation which should have been the tangerine of Arkansas. Perhaps what can't be substituted is the preposition of, a watermark of where which time cannot edit out, a desire not just to experience the earth through the senses, but to possess it, though that's not really the point. The point is, the poet looked at the moon once, so we have these words to weep on. So we look at the moon, and we look at the earth to forget about the moon. And we look at the moon to forget about the earth. Until the moon and earth don't matter, forgetting matters. Each eye is a home country to the orphaned worlds it witnesses. The moon of Budapest, the moon of Bangladesh. There is no place to which the moon is fastened as a pair of eyes fastens the moon. As the moonlight falls behind my eyelids, suddenly I rely on nothing to live. Thank you. So what's the plan now? Q&A or
I mean,
break up?
we could have questions. Sometimes we need some time to just think of them and then talk amongst ourselves. But other questions? Yes. Okay. So.
Were most or all of these originally songs, and if so, has any music survived from that period?
Right. These poems, they call 词 poetry, which are literally lyrics. So they were accompanied by melodies, musical instruments, and performed by hired singers. During that time, it serves mostly as banquet music. I don't think so. I don't think the music actually survived. The lyrics, the poems survived. But what is beautiful is that because these poems are so wonderful, there are Chinese pop songs nowadays using them as lyrics. A lot of Chinese pop. Actually, I was listening to one on the subway here. So that's the rebirth of these song poems.
I wanted to ask about the level of science in the actual words and whether you were thinking about that, because in the first slide that you showed us, there were a lot of monosyllables and
Right.
a lot of,
It's very striking. Excuse me. So I was just wondering how you replicated the sonic tapestries of these poems, or whether you kind of played with the sonics of the English to accommodate for the sonics of the Chinese.
That's a great question, and the straightforward answer is I cannot preserve that. As those grammatical characteristics of Chinese ancient poetry, the music of it is also lost in translation. But what can be not preserved, and I don't think that preservation is the primary concern of translation. That could be a primary concern of archaeology. But a primary concern of translation is to be the alchemist, recreate with the materials that you already have. And what I was trying to do is to make these poems as sonically beautiful as they can be in this strange language of English. Like the poem written by the anonymous, I was counting the syllables. I let my training of English poetry guide me while they are being reborn into English. So, but one of the things, my student asked me, how do you get the sense of musicality in poetry writing? And I asked them to memorize and recite. And a lot of these poems I recited when I was a child before I could understand the meaning of those poems. So I have internalized some of the musicality already. So maybe unconsciously, I was trying to place that tempo in English translation as well. maybe one last question, and we'll eat some snacks.
You mentioned the the sentimentality of the poems.
Right.
Do you feel any urge to tamp that down or alchemize that for like a different time or a different language?
Yes, I do feel the urge because I'm criticized as a overtly unsentimental poet in my first book. My friends call my poems indifferent. I don't know, I don't agree, but I guess they're right. But there are moments, for example, I give you an example here. I'll give you a few examples. My method or like the literal meaning of those poems, because I rewrite them in English and I revise them in English. It's not literal translation. So this last poem I just read by Li Qingzhao, there's the line, "Some trees budding the usual patterns of spring." But in the original text is again, the willow sprouting, the plum blossoms blossoming. But after translating like hundreds of poems that has willows and plum blossoms, I was like, I'm so tired of it, as Li Qingzhao is tired of her life. So I thought it might be the right sentiment to just translate it as some trees budding. What are the trees? I don't care anymore. The usual patterns of spring, I've seen them, because the next line she said, I think I'm going to die in this region. Right, so I was trying to translate the heartbeat, trying to, it's almost like translation is like being an actor. You put on this persona of these dead ancient poets and try to feel what they feel and what would they be like writing nowadays. And here's another example about plum blossom. Again, there's so many plum blossoms in this book. And the moon, because they had nothing else to write about. They had no hand lotion, Coca-Cola, piano, etc. Fried chickens. So it's just the plum blossoms. And the literal translation of this line, 都道无人愁似我，今夜雪有梅花似我愁. Nobody is as sad as I am tonight. Only in the snowy night, the plum blossom is as sad as I am. Like, that's not good. So I changed it. The plum blossoms open in the exact shape of my sorrow. I think it sounds nicer. I don't know. But in Chinese, that sounds nicer. So I did try to kind of lower the level of sentimentality, right? Yeah. Yes.
Not to put words in your mouth, but it seems as if you were attempting to, in translating, write your experience of reading these poems and sort of your experience in internalizing these poems. Do you feel like you, at any point, strayed too far away from what that sort of original meaning was in the original language, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Did you finish the question?
I was no. I was trailing off. It's fine. I didn't have a fully formed thought around that, but.
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the things that's constantly being discussed in translation is the idea of authenticity, right? But I think I gave myself the poet license. I really thought I'm not going to publish like this book. I was just translating when I could not write poems. That's just an exercise for me. But the idea of authenticity is a very philosophical idea in itself, I feel. What is authentic? And it means very different things to many different people. I think translators, again, are like those, yes, I kind of deviate from some of the original meanings, and it becomes my interpretation of a poem, my close reading of a poem. But I view it as being a pianist, a musician, I love classical music. And, who plays Beethoven the best? Richter, or Gillies, or Schnabel, or Bacchus. I love all of them. And to lose any one of those interpreters of Beethoven's sacred music sheet is to lose a whole world. And I think translation is a collective work. It is never done by just one person, because language itself expires, right? We are using a different language than Shakespeare's time. That's why I forbid my student from writing rhyme schemes. No rhyme schemes or iambic pentameter, for that matter. So I feel it's great to look at several translations, like my favorite poet, C.P. Cavafy. I love Edmund Keeley's translation. I love Ray Dolphin's translation. They complement each other. You can't just say that Jacqueline Dupre plays the Elgar Concerto the best and not listen to the rest of the recordings. One with a big heart will listen to all the recordings if you love that concerto, but also if you really love these poems, you should read other people's translation as well. But also, I hope some of you will become translators in future, creating your own version and understanding of these ancient poems. Better than mine. Okay, thank you so much for coming tonight.
cswr.hds.harvard.edu, copyright 2025, the President and Fellows of Harvard College.